Before I began the State of the College presentation, I wanted to introduce you to, if you haven't met her already, Maureen Lynch, the new chair of the Board of Trustees. Thank you. As Karen was saying, we are blessed with a really hardworking staff and faculty and committed students, and of course all of you as our stalwart mainstay. But this college, in my experience, is also really deeply blessed to have trustees that are not only willing to do the work, but also bring passion and commitment to the college as a whole. They genuinely care. That Maureen Lynch has agreed to become the next board chair, I think, is a great victory for this college, and well, I won't say for all of humanity yet. We'll see what you can do. But we really are quite fortunate, I think, to be served by a board of trustees. So the trustees in the room may want to wave your hand. I know there's some of you. Malta, get your hand up. Yeah. Stand up. And so now, Maureen, don't sit back down. Maureen would like to say a few words to you.
But only a few, because you did not come here to hear the story of my life. Greetings from the board, those who are here and those who are not here, of course. And I just want to say one thing about Karen Mulhauser. She was the president of NARAL, National NARAL, in the early 80s, when I was the president of NARAL Ohio, the board of NARAL Ohio. And I didn't know her then, but she was a feminist hero to me then, and she remains that now for all the intervening years. So I'm so glad I've had a chance to work with you and get to know you better. Briefly, I'm a member of the class of '69, but unfortunately not the Antioch class of '69. But in the spirit of transparency, you've got to know that. I'm so jealous of all of you. Last night, hearing the speaker all through these reunion days and all the earlier reunions that I've attended, I'm jealous of your Antioch education, your Antioch experience. I had a very straight, typical kind of university experience, and I can't help but wonder what would have happened to my life, which has been fine and good, but it might have been a great deal richer if I had just gone to Antioch. And then the only other thing I want to say is I was asked to come on the board 3 times by Mark Roosevelt, and obviously I said no the first 2 times, and finally agreed to come on the board 5 years ago, and I've never regretted it. Melta told me it would be a learning experience. Yeah, it's been a hell of a learning experience. So I have been around Antioch for at least 5 years, and watching from afar for about 30 years. And I would not be standing up here as the chair of the board if I didn't believe that there is a future for Antioch, and if I didn't believe in Tom Manley and his team's leadership. That's it. Thanks.
I'm just letting that soak in. And And so I don't forget this, but I put it at the end. I always pack way too much into these slides as way, I think, unconscious or subconscious way of protecting myself from all of the questions that I'll get at the end. So I say, I'm leaving plenty of room for questions, and then it's like 5 minutes. So I know that with this group, it doesn't matter how many minutes we leave for questions at the end, you'll stay until all the questions are answered. So I'm good with that. But before I begin, and on the note that Maureen just made about the amazing, hardworking faculty and staff of this college, I want to introduce some of my staff members, and I'm not sure how many of them accepted the invitation to come, so I'm just going to ask them to stand up, and then I'll say a few words about them collectively. So I can see that they've actually commandeered a table over there. Would you all stand up? So I just want to say, and I'm getting a little emotional here, that a lot of emphasis in our country and our world is placed on individual leadership, and particularly individual male leadership, by the way, apropos to last night's amazing talk. I think we all know, those of us who have been involved in movements that are about changing culture and changing systems, that's a myth, right? So the best that leaders, we're told, can hope for is in the end that they're able to make the conditions for people to take charge of their lives and make change, and then you can step back and feel that you've done what you could. This group of people, we are so fortunate to have them here, that they come every day, despite the challenges, some of which I'll talk about in the state of the college today. But it's not all bad news. In fact, in the way we're looking at it, it's pretty good. So I want to thank you guys, that's a general term, for the commitment that you have, that you bring to us. And I know that every person in this room and every person on this campus, and I met a lot of people around the world that don't know about Antioch yet, are grateful for the work that you're doing. Okay, how am I on sound? Okay, so I'm probably going to move down. Yes. So what you said doesn't matter what Suzanne said. Okay. How is this? No, that's not my fault. Is that better? Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to come down there, and we can look at the slide deck together. Is that okay? All right. I feel like Phil Donahue. How's it going, Walt?
You're doing fantastic.
Good. So, no. What, can I do that? No. Can we close the MacBook? No. Okay. What I'm going to ask you to do is pretend it's not there. I know you can do it. Okay, we got to get on with this, okay? So, I will not eat the microphone. And if you say that one more time, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to keep the microphone right here and hope that's going to work, okay? All right, so I want to take you back to last year's State of the College. how many of you were here last year? Oh man, that's really great. Thank you for coming back. You're either just wondering how this ends? No. Or how we did, and I'm going to tell you how we did. So at last year's State of the Union, we actually had John Marcus, who writes for the Hechinger Report on education. And he attended the session and interviewed some of you and many other people on the campus. And then he wrote this piece. How many of you, we sent it out, but you may have missed it. You may not remember it. It was a major article, and it was really one of the first big, I think, boosts that we got after a number of kind of not so great articles inside higher education at that point, and even the local papers about budget cuts and so forth. And this article, when we looked at it internally, gave us the sense that we really are going in the right direction. And they even quoted some college presidents who are deans in higher education, like Mike McPherson. And they also said, Antioch's got it right. And what they were talking about was, and what this article extolled, was that we were trying to be really pretty honest with ourselves and with our supporters about the challenges that we face. And we talked about being, and you'll remember this, and so I'm going to try as much as I can to continue in that vein, just in the short minutes that we have together, and in answering your questions to the best of our information to answer them. So one of the things that John had talked about was the way the college is connecting its vision for the future to its past. And he was particularly taken by this quote by Horace Mann and our connection to what we're doing with Antioch now, or hoping to do with Antioch now. This idea that we're faced at certain moments with the opportunity to actually make pivotal change. And Horace Mann was an innovator from the beginning. And when he came here, he came not to become a college president in Southwest Ohio. He wouldn't have left Massachusetts to do that. But because he saw the opportunity to do something that was really needed in the world, and that he believed that he had ideas and energy to make happen. And that's this notion of a chance for a college such as was never known before. Well, we're taking that idea and we're translating it into a new kind of American college. And we're stuck on Horace Mann. Well, this says it's a loaner, so. Okay. Thank you. There's a magic finger. So I'm going to stay up here just for a second to see if this works. So we've talked about this, and rather than leave this for the end, I want to put it in the very beginning. And then we're going to get into a lot of what Gary at Lima calls the nerdy details that we love. But before we do that, I just want to remind you that the reason we are putting so much effort and energy into this enterprise is not because we're trying to recreate what Antioch was. And I know you've heard me say that before, and I've heard you tell me that, and I know you understand it, but it's very important that we have that up front and very clear, because we have serious challenges in higher education. And the call now is actually very much like the call was at Horace Mann's time, for a new kind of education. And there's also the possibility, as we look more widely in the world, a need for a new way of looking at power. And that's an opportunity as well. And we think the current generation of students and the future students that we bring to this college are going to be the architects of that new education and that new power. These are two books that I would recommend. The Board of Trustees has read the one on my left, right? Your right. And we're seriously looking at the lessons from this, and I'm not going to go into detail about that. And the one on my right, your left, is all about this need to reinvent higher education, not in an incremental way, but in a very radical way. So I recommend both of them to you, and if you want to get the references, please ask me afterwards. Okay, so last year, when we were here, we looked at this idea of being a startup, and I said, let me tell you what I read that got me to come here. And these were the first lines in the presidential search description. We are a 165-year-old startup, and that really captured my imagination. Little did I know it was completely true. So here's the state of the college in a haiku version. We're now a 160-year-old, right, 68, sorry. Sorry. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll keep supporting us. So I know when we talk about startups, and many of you, and last year we went through what the three major areas of attention for a startup, the indispensable rules for success. And then one of you, Pavel Curtis, added a fourth one, which was totally true about focusing on the other three. And then another alum who I saw kept saying, you know, I really don't like this idea of a startup. We're a work in progress. So I'm nothing if I'm not open, so I am accepting that as a substitute for being a startup. We are a 168-year-old work in progress, and I underscore the progress. So in our year one, in my year one here, we focused on accreditation, strategic planning, building a vision, financial right-sizing, fund and friend raising. Those were the four major focuses, and many other things were happening at that same time. In year two, coming out of that year of planning, we knew we had to focus on capacity building in admissions, that recruitment of students, that we had to have a real clear offering to set us apart in a very competitive and complicated small college world, that we needed, in order to do that, to deliver a curriculum that we could sustain and offer, and without burning out everybody that was working here on this four-quarter cycle. And we needed to find ways in that calendar to engage our talented alumni and others who really wanted to help us but couldn't drop their lives and come for 12 weeks or more every year. We knew that we had to continue this process of financial right-sizing and the ongoing fundraising and friend-raising. So I want to go over some progress points, and I will then get to some challenge points and then to your questions. And can somebody give me time right now? Oh, there it is, yeah, 10 to 1. Okay, we'll see how fast I can go through. So the value proposition development. was in progress, just getting started really when we met last year in July. And I'm really pleased to say that I think we really hit this one out of the proverbial park. I'm going to read this to you because the print may be a little bit small, but the print's getting smaller in some other slides. So own your education is the tagline for this. Why an Antioch education works for you. This is addressed to students, after all. Antioch College provides an individually shaped education that works in the world by engaging students in the fundamental challenges of the world. It works for you because you own it. It is designed and built with and by you each step of the way. No school offers students greater agency in and accountability for their education and in the shared governance of their college than Antioch. And no school provides such a unique set of support and learning experiences and resources as affordably. For 170 years, Antioch has been a college that changes lives in ways that last. It will change yours. Come to Antioch College and own your education. So this is our value proposition statement. This isn't something that we actually require everybody. It's not tattooed on my back yet. But it is the underlying sort of thinking and claiming of educational space that allows us to, as you'll see, develop other materials and to begin to bring our strengths forward. So here are some progress points. That was the value proposition development. And I would go back and I could spend the whole time talking about how that was developed and the process, because I'm nerdy like that, as Garriott is with the admissions stuff. But I'm going to put it aside because I want to cover a lot of ground and, as I said, get to your questions. What I would say is that in testing this, and we didn't hire a big focus group research firm to do it. We did it by having conversations, small conversations, and with many alumni. And I found that this idea just resonates. It didn't get current students sort of said, well, we are already doing that, right? And it really spoke to the experience that generations of alumni that I've spoken to have had. So I knew it was really something that would hit the sweet spot for Antioch. So Garriott Luima is the Dean of Admissions, but last year when you came here, he wasn't. We were just getting through the end of that dance about getting, will you come? I don't know. I think maybe he had actually, we'd agreed, but we didn't have him here. And he is here now. And while I just said that no single person is the whole story, I will say that Garriott has brought confidence to one of the areas that we struggled in, and he has brought great, I think, patience and in taking steps that can be maintained. So here are just some of the things, and I didn't go over this list with him, that I think he's done very quickly in his first 9 months, 9 or 10 months of being at Antioch. He incorporated the value proposition that I just read to you into new admissions materials. I'll show you some pictures of this in a minute. We were working with a design firm. We knew he was coming. We knew we had to get these materials ready for him, but he was able to quickly step in and bring them to the finish line. He helped lead the overall, that's something wrong, helped lead overall overhaul, thank you. I actually wrote it too. Overall of all the college's websites. That's in process. I don't have pretty pictures of it yet, but we're actually starting to get the first drafts of the design, and that is we expect to unveil that in October. That's quick time. We've been on that for 6 months, 4 months. How many months, Garriott? 4 months. He's adopted and adapted the best practice systems for a recruitment program in his office. We did not have those systems in place. This is one of the reasons that we struggled. We did not build the admission systems and train our staff to use those systems, and so we were behind even after especially after we got accreditation. He's brought new leadership to the area of financial aid, another area that was really problematic for us in the first few years, or in the last few years. And he has begun to recruit our classes, and he's done 2 things. One is he came rather late in the recruitment cycle, but he's had, I think, a significant impact on turning our numbers around for this fall. I'll go through some of those numbers in a minute for bringing in the class of 2022. And he's also started quickly to look forward to how we build on those numbers and begin to look not just at high school seniors and recruiting them, but how we begin to develop a deeper strategy that will begin working with students who are second and third year, and maybe even first year high school students. And we know that our critical recruitment area has to be community colleges, and we're working on that as well. So he's done all of those things and more. So here's some examples of how that value proposition has been incorporated into new recruitment material. You can see it up at the top, that statement, but we're not making it like the big thing. And what I love about how we've approached this is that we've not only sort of tried to say, look, if you come here, you can own your education. We actually demonstrate it in our recruitment materials. So that's not a mistake. What we did was we developed the text. We interviewed people, and we developed the text, and we wrote it in the materials, and then we gave it to students. And we gave them Sharpies. And we said, tell us, what you like, and tell us what you don't like. And they did. Some of the things that they told us that they didn't like in their comments, we didn't feel could play to you, so we took no. We did change some of the language, but even that was changed back by students. So here's an example of how we're talking about the college as a new kind of American college, even though we don't sort of use the American reference in the materials themselves. These are all comments that students have made to these materials, and this is the way the material went out to the prospective students that we're trying to recruit. So lest you fear that we are no longer a place that cares about how people think and write, don't fear that. We very much emphasize that. This is a difficult place, and our faculty are very demanding. But we still emphasize this idea of engaging the world, experiential learning. This is a page that talks about this, the new curriculum that I'll mention in a second. But as part of this process of building our capacity for admissions, we recognized that we needed to move from what was a fairly general statement of academic offerings and majors to something that we could support with the faculty, the small faculty that we have, but that also rang true to the value commitments of an Antioch education. And here's where we're emphasizing this idea. There are areas of study, but every single student that comes to Antioch starting this fall must design their own major. They will do that in collaboration with faculty. There is a very carefully developed way of bringing those students into a position where they're able to do that. But there will no longer be a sort of set menu major that students can choose from. If I take these 10 courses, I can get I can become a biology major. You can be a biology major, but you have to put your imprint and your passion on it. And of course, co-op is still at the center of this. So classroom, co-op, community, all of those things are here. They're here in a strengthened fashion. So I want to talk a little bit about this gets, now we're getting our nerdy, wonky boots on. Are you ready? Okay. I want to take you through a few slides that actually I think explain our challenge. I don't think they explain our challenge. I know they explain our challenge. So the college opens in 2011, and we recruit our first 35 students. And we decided that to bring students back, especially to an unaccredited college, we needed to offer really generous scholarships, and so we developed the Horace Mann Scholarship, which was 100% support. And we offered that scholarship for 4 years. The plan was to offer it for 4 years, and then in the 5th year to sort of transition and to begin to bring down the discount or the scholarship rate, because those were not funded scholarships in the sense that we had 100% of the money. We had money to operate the college, but not necessarily to generate additional revenue from the from income that we weren't earning from tuition. So this is a slide that talks about student-derived revenue, and we really began to focus on student-derived revenue. Many of you were talking to me about this as soon as I got here, and I understand it. But getting all of us to get our heads around it and find the best way to talk about it wasn't as easy as you may think. And we had a consultant that the board supported and paid for, who came in and really boiled this down for us. And he showed us a slide of net student revenue. This is just last winter. A net student revenue for 15 colleges that we would think we compare ourselves to. Mostly they're small colleges and some other GLCA schools. And people were looking at it and they said, well, where's Antioch? And because there are all these schools, sort of some of it at the top, and this is average net revenue per student, right? So you're looking at numbers of $22,000, $25,000. The average actually was above $15,000. And it's like, okay, but show us where Antioch is. And he said, well, Antioch's up there. And everybody's looking, well, we don't see it. And it's because it was the very bottom line, and it barely was on the screen. And it was, at that point, this is last January, $1,500 per student total. That's net revenue. And that was, I think, maybe including room and board. It may have just been tuition. So he said, you don't have an expense problem at Antioch, even though you've done amazing work in getting your budget from $22 million to 19, 16, now around 14 million. You have a revenue problem. Your only source of revenue, appreciable revenue, is from philanthropy. And that's a miracle in and of itself. You know, any other college would love to have that. But so this shows from fiscal year 15, net revenue per student. And you can, and I'll add the discount now. So I assume all of you understand what the tuition discount is. But if you don't, it's like the sticker price on a car, right? So you go and you look at the price of the car, and how many of you pay the sticker price for a car? Right. Well, very few people pay the sticker price for college tuition, which is usually pretty high if it's a private college, or even the publics are fairly high now. The tuition is discounted to provide financial aid packages for students who have greater need than others. And even students that probably could afford, or their families could afford the whole amount, are usually getting some kind of financial package, right? So that percentage there is the percentage of the listed tuition at Antioch College that was discounted. So if the sticker price were 100, students in 2015 were paying, this is all of the students in the college, were paying 3% of that sticker price, okay? The discount. That's right. That's their discount. And it's, no, the 97%, this gets a little confusing, is the amount of financial aid that Antioch College grant is giving off of the discount, right? And then on top of that, you know, there's other federal financial aid when we started to qualify for that. So you can see that coming down. And that, you know, that was one of the charges that the board gave me when I came. You know, we look at this, we know we have to bring this down, but it's a lot harder to do this, right? Because you begin to build up a value proposition. There was another value proposition for Antioch, and it was like, free is a really good deal. And seriously, and if you talk to some of the students that came, they may have graduated and been really glad that they had come here, but the reason that they chose to come here was because of that, a Horace Mann scholarship. And every student that came for the first 4 years got a 100% Horace Mann scholarship. So that doesn't mean you're out of the woods, so to speak, after 4 years. It means that even after that 4th year, you've got one class that for the next 4 years that is going to get 100% tuition scholarship. So you add up all of those years in terms of tuition that we're foregoing, and it's 4 times 4, right, in terms of total revenue to the college. Now, that's not the only reason it's difficult, because the truth is higher education's expensive, and many families in the U.S. Cannot afford it, and they won't look at a college like Antioch or even Oberlin or another place if they see that high sticker price or there's not really good financial aid packages. So what happened in 2015, which was the 4th year, right, I think, of the Horace Mann, maybe, is that right? For 11, 12, 13, 14, I'm sorry, that's the first year afterwards, we're still at 97%. And the reason is that when we went out to recruit students, you know, the applications just went off the table. And so the admissions office quickly worked to come up with additional scholarships and things, and so the discount stayed high. And it stayed high the next year, and it stayed high pretty high the year after that. But we're starting to bring it down, right? So that's a 10% drop in fiscal year 17. And for this year, we're looking at 78%. This is the number for all of the students at Antioch, right? So we still have students in the pipeline at 97%, 95, 90, right? And we'll graduate the class of 2019 with that 97% rate this next June. Does this make sense? Okay. Well, we are eligible for, for federal financial aid, and what percentage of it, do you know, Garriott, or someone at Hannah? What percentage? That sounds like I'll get back to you question. And I hope somebody will write that down and we can get that. So let's look at tuition discount rate and enrollment. So when we had that class at 97 and even 95, so we've added those numbers in, we were still growing, and we hit our top level in fiscal year 16 with 266 students. But remember, all of those students, or most of those students, are almost completely supported through the Horace Mann Fellowships and other financial aid. And you can see this isn't the only reason that our numbers dropped off, because remember I said we didn't actually have the admission systems and the capacity to actually go out and sort of recruit students in the way that we're starting to now. So when we received accreditation in 2016, the feeling was, and I think this is more of a feeling than an analytical prediction, is that we would get accreditation and the skies would open, both with money and students. And that didn't happen. And there are a lot of reasons why that wasn't realistic, but we believed it. So fiscal year 18, in terms of enrollment, was not, strictly speaking, I think, a disaster just because of our falling discount rate. I don't know how much of a factor that was. It's still a factor, but there were a lot of other things, and it was more on the lines of our actual admissions processes. This year, for fiscal year 19, even though the enrollment will get smaller, we have a lot of reason for optimism, and I'll show you why. So this is a kind of reverse of that first slide that I showed you. So even though the number of students that we're enrolling is decreasing, the amount of net revenue per student is increasing. And I don't have this slide to show you, but even absolute revenue from tuition and room and board is higher, as it will be at the highest point that it's been since the college reopened, even with one of the smallest enrollments. Yeah. That's just entering class? Okay, so what would it be? Is that apples to apples? Those are all entering classes? Okay. Well, that's okay. That still sort of shows us where we're heading. Correct. Yes, it ends June 2019. All right. So here's the last of these slides that I want to show you. This is net tuition per student, the average net tuition per student, and enrollment. And you can, again, sort of see that intersection point, and that we will, if we can continue to recruit even more students, and we start having some volume, and we're able to, we're not interested, we're not lowering the discount rate to 0 or 50 or even, we're looking to get it to a place where there's balance and that we can begin to count on significant student-derived revenue as a significant but not a dependent form of revenue for the college. Okay, this is where you need to put your reading glasses on and come on stage, probably. I got this information from Garriott, but it was a beautifully put together Word document, and when I tried to copy and cut and paste it into a slide, it went all over the place. So this is the best that I could do. So here we're looking at a comparison of fiscal year 18 total discount. This is total discount, right? Yeah. 89% in fiscal year 19. So we're projecting that'll be at 78%. 70% for the students entering in fall of 2018. Right? So that's a significant difference to go from 2 years ago, practically 100% to 70% in a few years, and it's a challenge, frankly, to recruit and drop the discount rate that much.
What is the rate being discounted? What is the 100% rate?
Oh, it would be so 43,407 is tuition, and then you'd add to that room and board, and we 43, including room and board. Okay, sorry. Good question. Well, 279, that doesn't mean that all of those students would be prepared to come to Antioch. If you look at what we did the year before, which isn't here, but I can, our selectivity was not very good in terms of actually making sure that we felt that the students would be prepared to actually do the work here and be successful. And while it's tempting just to say, we need more bodies, it's unethical to actually bring people that are going to struggle and spend money, perhaps take out loans, and not be able to be successful. And if our admissions staff feels that, and the faculty who read the files, then it's their obligation to sort of say, we don't think we should take this student. That's not the whole story on total applications. Well, I guess that would be, right? Some of them aren't complete. And Gary, do you have anything to add to that?
The total number includes incomplete applications and international apps, which we cannot accept because we don't have authorization from CBIS to do the I-20 certificate of eligibility for non-immigrants.
So that the total applications includes students who did not complete their application and international students whom we are not in a position to accept at this point. So, but it also includes students that we looked at, completed their applications, and said, we don't think this is the right place for you. Don?
What's the block on international students?
In this group, actually, I think we'll get to, we'll show those numbers. We can't accept them because we have not, the process, we haven't been approved by the Department of Homeland Security to actually issue those documentations. We're in process with that. And the block, I think, for this group is going to be around 60 or so of the applications. It was a higher number in the past. To give you you probably didn't hear that. So the late deposits, and I actually did update your number in these slides. So it's 38 deposits at the moment. We're projecting 40 to 50 students will be here in the next month. Something on the tip of my tongue about that. To compare that to next year, I'm just going to jump ahead to the next slide because I think there's some comparatives here. I'll just read these to you. So if you look at deposits last year at this time, right? So we just mentioned 38 we have now. You see under 2018, the third column down, not column, row down, 38 deposits. Look just to the left of that. This time last year, we had 13. Okay. Right. So as I was saying, last year was an incredibly challenging year, but we were able to, comparatively speaking, we're doing really well. And those students, we feel much more confident about those students that we have that have deposited, and all the students that we have admitted for that matter. There's a little more information here about the demographics of the class that's coming in. I can go back and you can see that it's 75% women, 16% first generation, 3% legacy. You all know what that means. Yeah, it means people who have come from an Antiochian family. 32% people of color, and 16% LGBT. I would like to also say that I wouldn't have been able to give you these numbers last year in the same way that I've given them. The detail, the high touch that we have is a world apart. Now we have a long way to go, but we look at the students who have applied and that we've admitted, and we have a really good sense. Gary and his team has a really good sense of who's going to come and who's not going to come. So we're not sort of saying, oh, we have 279 admitted students. We expect to, and then we just don't take some percentage of that and say 75 students are going to show up in the fall. We did that in the past, and even if we got 75 students and we weren't able to hit the financial number that we need to hit in order to be able to afford students, we would be in trouble, because that's more students that we really can't afford to fund over another 4 years if they stay. So we really need to be patient and methodical in building enrollment that is both good fit for the college, and that we can develop over a period of time that will allow the college to be more financially stable. So leaving admissions, and this is one of these cases, I can just tell we're going to be here till 5 o'clock, I'm sorry. Some other highlights quickly. We're really proud of the last year's Antiochians, especially I like this one because of the title, "The Status Quo is Not an Option." It really captures our own kind of internal motto about the work that we're doing. And this particular Antiochian really looks at a lot of the vision work. This one looks at the work that the spectacular work that the faculty did in less than a year to revise and, in fact, redesign the curriculum around the self-design major. And we also worked through a calendar change, which I think is really going to have a major impact in how the college incorporates resources from alumni and others in the community in both the curriculum and in the areas of practice. All of that is described in this issue of the Antiochian, which was completely redesigned by an Antiochian and who has committed to doing it for the next 4 years, I believe. Is that right, Suzanne? James?
It was redesigned by Antioch, and he said that he will do it for us for free for the next 3 years.
For the next 3 years, so good stuff. We had the second of the now annual Coretta Scott King Center Legacy Luncheon and Legacy Awards. And the first one came out of the gate in 2017 and was a sellout. And this one repeated, and in fact, we had to take away some of the performance space in order to fit more tables in. And we have the really great problem of trying to decide whether we should stay in that venue next year or move to a bigger space. So shout out to Mila Cooper for that extraordinary work. You are going to be hearing tonight, right? About the first class of Victories for Humanity award winners. This is a new program that is supported by an Antioch alumnus. Is this anonymous? No. So Matt Morgan, class of 99, has funded this for 4 years, and there will be 3 winners tonight, but there were 9 or 12 finalists, and a committee led by Karen and Matt, with Matt's support, also did amazing work in whittling down almost 60 applications for these grants. This is a remarkable program, and this will start hitting, I think, the media as soon as we announce the winners and see the work that they're going to do with these grants. I mentioned the higher education, the Hechinger piece. We got a lot of feedback, a lot of questions about how Antioch is coming back, and a lot of colleges and universities in this country are watching this school. I hope you all saw the piece in the New York Times. Was that in March or April? Around our sexual offense prevention policy, its history, and how it's being put into practice now. The title of the article is "Thank You for Asking." It was followed up almost weeks later by another piece in the New York Times, which we didn't even know was in the works. And in fact, the person who wrote the article didn't know that the Times was supporting the development of this video about a similar subject. If you haven't seen this video, I was going to show it to you, but it's 10 minutes, it's a little bit long. But you should really see it. It'll make you cry. What's that? Okay. I'm gonna make you cry just because I'm gonna go on so long. If we have time. Yeah, sure. I think we can arrange that. Yeah. So this was the video. I can't go up and push that button now, but we'll try to arrange that. Can somebody help make that happen tonight? Here's just I think a selected list of all of the other medium, and this is just print, about the college over the last 8 or 9 months. A lot of it has to do with the Me Too and the SOPP story, which started with some op-ed pieces that came out of the college and then really began to build momentum. You heard yesterday, how many of you went to the presentation about Antioch College Village, the pocket neighborhood? There's another really nice there's a fly-through of this. It's beautiful. Maybe we'll put that on the ticket for tonight as well. I encourage you to go. Is that on our website? Is Monica here? Do you know if it's on the website? Okay. We'll try to get it on the website. If you didn't see it, you should look at it. This is a very innovative project. It hits so many of our values. And the 8 cottages that have been designed so far, and we're in construction drawings, all of them are spoken for. And there is a waiting list beyond that. And the design is really groundbreaking by Jason McLennan, who's one of the leading world green architects. And I'm really proud of the way this is evolving. And the project was sort of dead in the water when it was 320 units and then 32 units, but the persistence of the college, the staff, the board members that are involved, this is one of the project Malta's leading, has got it to this place where the architect is doing the construction drawings and we have 8 deposits. So. Okay, that gets me to the challenge. I'm sorry if there are any staff members. I mean, I could really go on. And a shout out to Laurie Collins Hall, our provost, for her leadership and her work with the faculty, and Hannah Spearson, who's there on so many fronts. She stepped in to help kind of bridge our analysis and strategy and bring in numbers and then help with financial aid before the systems and financial aid before Gary had got here. So thank you all, and I'm not sure if there's anybody over there that I'm missing. And thanks to the faculty that are here who continue to love this college. Okay, so here are the challenges. You notice I was talking about student recruitment, and I wasn't talking about student retention. We have a student retention problem. So despite the fact that even after the first 2 years, retention was really pretty good. But as we brought more students in, and things became more complex. And the value of free, while it kept a number of students here for the 4 years, did not persuade students in the 3rd and the 4th class and even in the first 2 to actually retain at those higher levels. And we continue to, even at the lower numbers, struggle with retention. And that's why it's so important, going back to the students that you bring in, that you make sure that as best as possible, those students are going to be able to thrive here. Because if they don't, then you can't retain them. And retaining a student is a whole lot, it should be easier than recruiting a new student, which is a pretty expensive proposition. Faculty turnover and retention is also a big challenge. The reasons are not the same as they are for students, but they're related to a whole set of causes, including the workload for a new college where you're actually building all of the systems as you go, and you're also asking faculty to be productive as scholars, and you're asking them to be involved in the community and to be effective classroom teachers and to write all of the rules that they need to work by. And you're doing it with a 4-quarter system that leaves 2 weeks off between fairly intense 11-week, 12-week sessions. Faculty would get research terms, but they would never be on research terms all at the same time. So the faculty wouldn't be here all at the same time. There were just a whole legion of challenges and problems there. And now I'm not even talking about the financial constraints of the college, right? The fact that in getting from 22 million to around 14 million now, we eliminated for last year faculty development. No one has had a raise at the college, for 3 or 4 years, and in fact, many staff members, including faculty, in the last quarter of 2018 fiscal year, had pay cuts or went on furlough. Those are no longer in the works or operational, but the financial challenges of the institution really make it difficult. That kind of covers that point: financial capacity and resources. And then finally, I think it's a big challenge that we are so reliant on philanthropy. Now, the good part of that is I've talked to college presidents in meetings over the last 2 years that I've been here, and they want to pull me aside and say, "How are you doing this? How are you raising that money?" These are places that have sizable endowments, but the amount of funds that we're actually able to raise to keep the institution going is seen as it's seen as miraculous by some places, and just seen as a huge heroic feat on your part, on the alumni's part, your commitment to this college. But that's not sustainable. Right? We know it's not sustainable, and it's not being sustained. So each year it gets harder to hit our total number, to bring in the cash when we need it. So we're managing quarter to quarter, sometimes payroll to payroll, in terms of making sure that we have the resources to keep going. So this goes back to the developing other revenue streams. And the only other, we can have alternative revenue streams for the college. But the main thing that we do here is education. And so if we're not actually able to find ways to offer educational programs that are valuable enough for either foundations or donors or individual families to pay for and to afford, then we're not going to be a viable long-range, long-term enterprise. So, just a quick story, because in 1990, I took the first group of U.S. college students to Zimbabwe in March of 1990, and for a study abroad program that we'd set up in the Claremont colleges. And we had just, I think, landed, or we were in London ready to get on the flight, and we got a call that Nelson Mandela, who had been released from prison in South Africa 2 weeks before, was going to come to Zimbabwe to celebrate the anniversary of a trade union alliance. And he was going to come to the University of Zimbabwe, and would we want to bring our students, our 15 students, and listen to him speak? It's like, you changed the phone from, it's back when you had those kind of phones. And we said, yeah, we think we can work that into our schedule. And it turned out to be one of the I'm getting goosebumps now every time I tell the story, and I think about it, most magical moments in my life, because there were only 100 people. And he gave this speech, and he wore an ill-fitting suit, and his Winnie Mandela was with him, and she was a larger-than-life presence. But the determination and confidence that man exuded, even after everything that he had endured, was changing to be in that room, to be in his presence. And then he came down after the speech and, talked to some of the students and was shaking hands, and it was really marvelous. When I was able, a couple years later, to actually go to Robben Island and see his cell, I also came across this quote, and I just think we can do this. It seems really hard. Maybe it seems impossible. But if we keep at it, we will do this with your help. So we challenge our students with this sign when they come into the admissions office. I often feel when I see it that we actually need to have a sign on the other side that says the same thing, but that we can show ourselves. And I show this sometimes to the trustees. It's like, how bold are we? We know that our students are bold. We know this is a place where students own their education. It's a place where you owned your education and you took it into the world and you made it work in your lives. So I wanted to end with a short video that that demonstrates what it looks like when students own their education. And this is a video that's completely student made. So it's not something that we paid $40,000 for. We didn't pay anything for it, and it's the students' take on why their peers ought to come to Antioch College. And I guess I've got to go up here, right?
Community government is that part of the Antioch College program which probably comes nearest to being Antioch government.
The woman power of this nation can be the power.
There's Holland Berman. Go ahead and get the space.
Holland Berman, who, stand up again, who edited this film. Sorry. She'll be one of the. She'll be at the panel at 5, one of the panels. So I'm going to pull this back up to, so you don't look at all. Don't read my email. Okay. So yes, no, I don't want to start again. So we'll just leave that up there. Questions. There was a slide that says questions, but I think you can get that. So do we have some mics that we can run around? This one. Okay. Will you run mics?
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the physical buildings on campus? I'm concerned about parents who bring their kids here for Visitor's Day or what have you, and seeing the current state of the student union. Can you talk about that space, SPALT, and maybe some other buildings that, and of course Maine, that are not currently being used and can't be used?
Yes, thank you for that question. Okay. You want me to repeat the questions? The question was if I could speak about the state of buildings on campus, in particular the student union and SPALT and Maine, and how we deal with the impression that those buildings create when students and parents come to visit the college. So, first of all, let me just give you a larger context. The college has done a series of master plans early on. It determined what space it was going to need to actually operate academically. And there were a number of buildings that, and including parts of buildings that aren't necessary. So the top floor of the Arts and Science building, Arts Science building is not finished, not ready. The top floor of the Kettering lab where advancement and WISO are located, it's not open. Sontag Fells, while we had part of it open for a while, we've closed that off. The back end is still being used by as a rental to Montessori school. SPALT and one of the campus master plans, designated or recommended a number of buildings be actually brought down, including Student Union and SPALT, and probably Sontag Fells. When I came, there was no money to do that, by the way, and no money to fix the other buildings as well. And we were trying to go from a $22 million budget, remember, or going the other way. So investing a lot in capital projects or anything in capital projects seemed not to be the priority, even though I think you're absolutely right. There's a relationship between how people see the campus and whether they want to make a commitment to coming here or to sending their student here. I took a look with some unpaid consultants, friends of mine that came through town, and we walked around, and I asked about, do you think that all of these buildings need to come down? And the answer was unequivocal no. And I recommend that you don't take them down until you've fully explored the possibility of repurposing them. And if you don't need this space, it's entirely possible that the community that you're living in could use this space in some fashion. So we decided it is probable that the union will have to come down given all of the internal deterioration. But it's with enough money that can be rehabbed and the shell can be saved. So ever hopeful that one of you who had the best meal of your life, the best cup of coffee, the best smoking experience on the stoop, will decide that that's the one thing you want to help us with. Spalt has other issues. A lot of us like the building and the way it looks. It could be restored. It's a question of whether the cost, and we actually know that it would be about $1 million cheaper to restore it and to build an annex to it to repurpose as a dormitory than it would be to tear it down and to recapture all that space. But we don't need that dormitory space down, so we're really sort of pushing those decisions out and trying to preserve our options. And once you take a building down, you no longer have the option of repurposing it. So it's a tough problem to negotiate. And when I talk to parents, and I encourage the admissions people and others to say the same thing, this is a problem that that students who come to Antioch get to help us solve, to think through, and perhaps even to work on. So we have reopened Weston as the student union. If you haven't seen it, that's largely the love and care of the amazing volunteer work project. Give yourself a round of applause, or give them a round of applause. And if things progress as we think they will with enrollment, we will rehab West as the next dormitory. Let me talk about Maine, because I think that of all of the buildings that we've mentioned, there's both symbolic and maybe even a higher utility value in getting Maine back online in some fashion. And I don't know that I'm free to actually go into much of the detail, but I would say that that's top on our list and it's actively being worked on. And the plan would be to open Kelly Hall first in that building.
Hi, I'm Lee Feinstein, daughter of Erwin Inman, and the last thing on Tom's list about financials was philanthropy. And we here today are a small percentage of the total alumni, and of all you sitting out here, only a small percentage have signed up on the new directory and website, and I want to encourage you to go out and do that so that we can get 100% connectivity, which will also encourage probably 90% reaching in the pocket and contributing. And since it's the alumni that are supporting most of our endeavors, we need to get more alumni into the fold. So as Paul's wife and helping hand, I want to add my encouragement for all of you to get onto the alumni directory through the website and search out your friends or ask your friends if they know of other people that they can bring in. Thank you.
Thank you. I have actually a couple of announcements. One is, I'm going to start with.
These are questions.
Okay,
this
is a question. Okay, this is a question. And I wonder if you have looked at my Antioch signature on my emails. This is a question, but I'll turn it into a little bit of a statement. I am so proud of what Antioch has done in my own life, for all of the Antiochians since then and what it's doing for the students now. I've spoken with some of the current students and the recent grads, and they love this self-design idea. And the concept of shared governance, which we didn't really call it back then, but it was community, was one that they really also applaud. And so my question is, if you have read, when you get to be president of an alumni association, you create a new signature for your emails. So in addition to the Horace Mann quote, I added another quote. And this is from Darwin. He says, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent that survives, but the one most responsive to change." And Antioch has kept its values through all of the changes that it's doing. And so you can find that quote online. I also did want to make an announcement, which we'll go into more detail later on, but Tracy did just get a report that there can be a tour at the Outdoor Education Center tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Karen. I was just joking with you. I was actually looking to see what the signature was, and then I remembered it was Darwin.
I have a question.
Okay. All right, sorry.
Okay. I was just sort of figuring out that at the moment it's costing like $100,000 a student based on the students we have. And I think there must be excess capacity, I know, in dormitory space and probably in faculty. So have you considered dropping the cost to reflect the discount rate, or drop your discount rate and make something in there like 40% the actual cost, which I think might appeal more to some middle-class parents who are looking through a million colleges and seeing a lower-priced college here, that if we had twice as many students or 4 times as many students, the discount rate would cover the cost of the college, if that makes any sense.
Yes, it does make sense, and we have considered that, and we're still considering what our, in business terms, pricing strategy, best pricing strategy or tuition level would be. We're approaching it very cautiously or carefully because we've looked at the experience that other colleges have had when they've done this. And there's an initial increase in applications and enrollment, and then it falls off pretty quickly after year 2 or 3. There's a culture around this whole idea of scholarship and there's a psychology. I know this from my other institutions that I've worked at, and it's not just a matter of saying, here's the actual cost and this is all you would have to pay if you came to Antioch. And look, it's $10,000 cheaper than if you go to Kenyon, for example, or another college. And then you'll hear, well, but Kenyon offered me a $15,000 scholarship. You say, yes, they did, but it's still going to be more expensive for you to go, because you're going to be taking out these loans and so forth. So we're looking at how to do that, and whether it makes sense, and whether we can actually do it on not a trial basis, but take a smaller group and offer an option to come to Antioch and to do some combination of maybe take a year or off, continue to do co-op, do some intensive work here in our block semesters, our block terms that'll be in December and July, and save the money that you would have to spend for room and board, and then we would take that savings and give it back, or part of it back, over the 4 years. So there are ways to work on it that are not simply gambling, that if we cut our tuition by 50%, we're going to get lots of applications, because, as I said, the evidence so far doesn't show that's the case. But it's good thinking, and we do have a group that we're trying to put together, and I know some of you have had. I think I saw Donald here earlier, who had some good thinking about how to price tuition.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Alan Siege. I'm from the class of 1978. Since I've been here, I've been listening to be incredibly deferential to your staff and to the board, and thanking them so effusively for what they do. I'd like to give you a chance to tell us all the stuff that you've been up to, so that I can get a sense of where you go and what you do. Leadership is such a complicated thing, but I'm sure you're doing a lot, and I'd just like to learn a little bit more about you and how you've been putting the Antioch face out there.
Thank you for that question. I don't want to take too much with that, and also I don't want to say too much in front of the people that I work with. When I was a dad for the first time many, many years ago, my son, who's now 34 and a new father, had a favorite book, and it was My Teacher Sleeps in School, and it was about this kindergarten teacher who, as the child imagined it, right? So the children leave, and they imagine that the teacher then sort of goes out to the school garden and picks some things for dinner and comes in and makes a salad and then clears off some desks and brings a blanket out and lays the blanket over the desk and has a pillow hidden in her drawer, and she goes and she gets there and she, does a little work and reads a book and then goes to sleep, and then wakes up the next morning and everybody comes to work and they start all over again. And that's the kind of narrative that I'm trying to project by not telling people what I do when I go home. I love to write. We love to walk around the Glen Helen. I spend a lot of time reading about, believe it or not, higher education. We spend a lot of time, the staff spends a lot of time meeting to talk about challenges that we have. It's not sort of just the crisis du jour, although we always have one of those. There's a high commitment to this notion of building a new kind of college, and that's why I'm here. That's why Suzanne is here. We gave up Portland, Oregon, and the best food carts in the world to come here. And while the food carts here are good, there's like 3 of them. And the beer's good, but in Portland I can have my nails done, go to a microbrewery, and get a good cup of coffee all in the same corner. So we came here because of what Antioch stands for and what we believe it can be, and that's what we spend a good part of our lives, I think, on. That's what I've been doing for the last 40 years in higher education, really. So how do we make the most transformational, powerful education possible and affordable for the most, more people on the planet. I don't know, does that get at what you wanted? If you want to, get the more secret stuff, or?
I know you visit places. I
Yeah. Yeah, we do. I'm on the road a lot. Suzanne's now on the road a lot because this is a journey we have to enlist. This goes back to the Lee's point. We need you all are wonderful, and we want you to keep coming back for every reunion. But the count must be close to 15,000 living alumni for the college. If we could get even 2/3 of that number really engaged. So going on the road may not even be the most efficient way to do it. I know it's not. We need other platforms. We travel and talk to people. We've been to up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. We also travel. We're going to be headed to Oregon tomorrow night, right? What day is it? Yes. And we're going to go to Eastern Oregon, to a place that Suzanne told me just a couple of days ago, because she didn't want my detox to be so immediate, that there's no cell phone or internet connection for 40 miles. So I'll let you know how that goes, but it'll take a while to find the internet connection. Yes. Can you wait for raise your hand and get a mic, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Hi there. Tamara Schulman, class of 95. Thank you so much for all of the work, and it's been great to hear as those of us with the teenagers were listening, paying attention. Two quick things. One is, some of you may have seen in the lineup that there was an environmental field program reunion that happened yesterday. How many of you heard of environmental field program? How many of you? Okay, well, I did it in the wrong order. I can't say who went on it. Anyway, in terms of create your own education, phenomenal, life-changing experience, there were those of us in the room who went from 1971 through 2002. So 4 courses, 2 vans, 12 participants. I know it's not something to bring back today necessarily, but the spirit of it and aspects of it, I think, are part of the draw that can be part of what you're talking about. So the other quick thing, I think most of the folks are gone, but we did want to do a group picture at 6, so I'll post it on our Facebook page, and we'll go from there. The second is, in terms of staying in touch, major shout out to Duffy for keeping us in the loop. Thank you so much. For Antiochians far and flung, in Vancouver, BC, it makes me still feel part of this community, and I appreciate that too. So thank you.
I'll take 4 minutes, maybe 5. I tend to overtalk. My name is Bob Baldwin. I was born in Yellow Springs in '33. My parents met and married at Antioch in the 20s. Dad raised 3 kids. I came back from my naval service and graduated in '57. So I've lived here my whole life. Tonight and today, I'm not into the dialogue on inventing Antioch as much as I think we all need to reminisce on the magic that was Antioch when we were students. I think there are some lessons that we can learn that made Antioch such a wonderful experience. For personal growth, I did not come to Antioch to save the world. Once I graduated, I think I had the tools and the sensitivity of the human condition to make a difference. But I did not come to save the world. I came to learn more about myself, get some tools so I could have a career, have a family, and all the other was a positive experience. So think back of what made Antioch a magical place for you. We had students from wealthy families. We had students from middle-class families. We had poor students. We had students of color. We have a wide range of students. Sexual orientation was not something we worried about. We had a wide tent of dialogue. We shared each other's opinions. We didn't agree with everybody, but it was a wide-ranging, accepting community, and it worked. We had an intramural program where we had, when you come to Antioch, you're expected to work turn out the damn papers. I went to Miami University 3 years, never did a paper. Blue books, never did a paper. Came to Antioch, I had 2 or 3 papers a week. So we were asked for a performance. But we had one word that encompassed the whole experience. We had standards. We had standards of student conduct. We had standards of faculty performance. We had standards of administrative expertise. They knew a small liberal arts college could not survive without tuition money. So we needed a wide range of supporters. And we had it. And it worked. And it still can work. But do not discount some of those things that work so well and made it a magical place for me.
Thank you, Bob. Yes.
Ready for another question?
Yes, yeah.
I know that the faculty are kept very busy right now with all of the new things that are going on at the college. I think it's great to see the ideas you're developing. Now that you're moving to the new schedule, I'm hoping maybe the faculty will have more opportunities to write research grants, bring in some funding, bring in some overhead to the college, and this is a way also of releasing some of the salary funds back to the college. So you might think about moving some things more in that direction if you aren't thinking about it already.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. We are, although we can always use additional ideas. So the new calendar, which I referred to, I didn't actually show a map of it. Works, if you're not aware, you can get the latest issue of the Antiochian. If you're not getting that Antiochian, you need to make sure that you get in touch with one of our alumni relations or advancement staff members so that we can find out why you're not receiving it. And in that, there is what do you call it? An explanation of the new calendar. So that calendar allows, does a couple of things. First of all, it allows for faculty to have a research term all at the same time, for the first time. Next summer, that will be a possibility, along with taking the month of December. The faculty have research projects, and they don't have to teach then, and they don't have to teach after the spring term, the spring quarter. In addition, as if you can read in the Antiochian about our areas of practice, the 5 areas of practice which are extensions, experiential extensions of the curriculum and at the college around democracy, diversity, social justice is one, creativity and story is another, well-being is one, creativity and story is one, and work is another, and environmental sustainability. In each of those areas, we're working on faculty. Are also helping to work on grants, research grants for themselves, but also that can involve students. And we have a partnership with the Yellow Springs Community Foundation, and the foundation will be supporting 4 to 5 senior professional fellows, like the Miller Fellows. It's from that Miller Fellows program, but these are going to be people who actually have already had a career, and they're going to be able to bring their professional expertise in those areas of practice and help us specifically with grant writing and building our capacity across the college to do that. So that's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
I'm Bud Haupt from class of 53. I just have like a quick overview of what your perspective or your vision for the future is in terms of the size of our student body. I'm still very confused about, well, I know we started out with about 30 and we're going some direction, but can you give us your overview on that?
Yeah, so I think that we're headed right now, if you looked at that, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, you know, the number of students are falling, and what I always emphasize is look at that revenue line. That's really where we have to pay attention. And of course, we need to have more students in order for that to be meaningful. So we have 40 to 50 students we're expecting for the fall. We aren't going to like triple that next fall, but we hope to add significantly. And we, as I said, Gary is working on a strategy that uses, we're working with an enrollment management and data consultant that's really going to help us look for, as I say, this is a problem of needles and haystacks, right? People who are a good fit for Antioch College are needles and haystacks. But what we need to do is not search every haystack in America or around the world when we can take international students. We need to understand which haystacks are likely going to have more Antiochian needles in them. And so that's part of the work that we're doing more strategically in the admissions office right now. So I would say, to cut to the chase in your question, we should be looking to stabilize enrollment in 5 years around between 300 and 400 students. That doesn't require us to add a major new dormitory. If we continue only, and if we add lower residency options, which are becoming increasingly important, as I said, for affordability reasons, for a smaller number of students, we could actually increase our total enrollment because, you know, we would have more people on co-op and they wouldn't have to have dormitory space here. Yeah, I hope that helps. I saw one more question, and Laurie, does this mean like stop taking questions? Oh. Do you want to just come up? Okay. All right. Thank you all. I would stay and answer questions, so I'll stay for a while. Thank you.